Thank you. Thank you very much for these very kind words. Great introduction. And JNU being the first university I visited, well, a long time ago in the 1980s. It has remained very, very dear to me because of the faculty members, because of the students. And when I see former students like Anish on the screen, it's like an hyphen between my alma mater, Sciences Po, and my adopted university that is JNU. So the point I want to make, and I will be brief because we need to have some time for the Q&A, and unfortunately I'll have to leave you after 1 hour. The point I want to make is, first of all, a kind of self-criticism as a political scientist. I think political scientists are focusing on elections, party politics, institutions, when in fact, for the Hindu nationalist, these things are not so important. Of course, they play a role, but to control society matters much more. And historically, when we try to figure out what have been the priorities of RSS, number one, to create a network of shakas at the grassroots level in order to exist in each village, in each town, in cities, in different neighborhoods of cities. That was the number one objective. And that was society oriented. It was for many years, till 48, the only work that mattered, RSS, and Rashtra Civika Samiti was doing the same job for women, girls, and women. But even if you go beyond 47, if you go to 48, you see the first additional organization created by RSS, and it is ABVP, Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, showing that beyond the network of shakas, there was another network that had to be built, and that was equally society-oriented. ABVP was the first student union to see the light of the day in Delhi, created by Hindu nationalists, RSS leaders, to resist communists, to resist the left. And they continued in the same vein by creating the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, BMS, in 1955, where the objective was to also penetrate the workers' milieu, the labor class, the working class. In between, the Vanavasi Kalyanashram had seen the light of the day in 52, 53, and that was another social group that they wanted to influence, to counter this time the Christian missionaries. Then you have in 1964 the Vishva Hindu Parishad to also coordinate, federate the different sampradayas, sectarian movements of Hinduism. And then 77 Vidyabharati, what was so important to make all the Sarasvati Shishu Mandirs, all these schools, part of one only unique coordination. 79 Sevabharti. Sevabharti was another very important department of RSS itself to, in that case, exist, develop activities among slum dwellers, among Dalits, in the name of Seva, in the name of help, free education, free health, and so on and so forth. Well, the list is longer, much longer. There is a huge list of civil society organizations which are supporting the objectives of RSS, that is to somewhat influence from the inside, control from outside the whole society. And recently with the caravan, we have been in a position to make available a list of more than 2,500 associations of what we call the Sangh Parivar. Well, that's one very important society-oriented activity of the RSS and BJP, and before that, Jan Sangh is only one of all these organizations. And this is something we really need to keep in mind. Then you have another society-oriented activity that is known as vigilantism. And of course, vigilantism is taking us one step further, because it's not only influencing and controlling, it's really exerting a cultural police. It is policing society. Let me give you the definition of vigilantism that my colleagues in France, Gilles Favarel-Garrigues and Laurent Gaillard, have offered. Vigilantism is a range of collective coercive practices which are often violent and usually illegal, that aim to keep order and or mete out justice in order to enforce legal or moral norms. Well, we've seen what it meant when Bajrang Dal, the youth wing of VHP, was created in 1984 and started to enforce these legal or moral norms vis-à-vis artists. Artists such as the great painter M.F. Hussain or the filmmaker Deepa Mehta. That was the beginning of targeted cultural policing focusing on individuals. Now we've seen, or subsequently we've seen, something more general, something more collective, when the targets have become the Muslims accused of love jihad, or the low caste Hindus accused of seducing upper caste Hindu girls. We've seen other movements such as Garvapsi, homecoming, reconversion to Hinduism, or of course the cow protection movement. All these vigilante activities gained momentum after 2014. They were there before, very much there before, and in my book on Gujarat, I show that in BJP ruled states like Gujarat, all these activities were there for a long time. But of course, after 2014, they became much more important. And that's the point I want to emphasize today. This is why I speak of a deeper state. There is a state with the police, with the judiciary, with institutions. And this state is the product, largely the product, directly or indirectly, of elections. And there is a deeper state, a state that goes more deeply in society. And this deeper state is the result, the product of the articulation of the official state and something I would call the unofficial state, that is made of organizations of the Sangh and even more vigilante groups, which are also part of the Sangh like Bajrang Dal. So what we see since 2014, is this combine of, if you want, the tip of the iceberg, that is what we see as the legitimate or even legal state, and the rest, much more massive set of organizations which may not be legal, but may be very effective. And this articulation between the two makes the state something deeper. There is a porosity, there is an osmosis between the policemen in the first place and the vigilantes. This is something you can see in particular when you look at the sociology of the police. Captain Ganesh Karnik, a BJP MLC of Karnataka, said to journalists in the party headquarters in Mangalore, "We have tried to send some of our boys into police. When I talk to students, I tell them to join the police. So when we need help, there are a lot of Karyakartas, activists, RSS. 60% of the young constables are our students." That's the first point I wanted to make regarding this deeper state business. The state is deeper because you have a kind of osmosis between the official and the unofficial, between the police with the uniform and those who are doing the same job without any uniform. This is something you see, of course, in the case of the cow protection movement, because you have policemen who belong to official wings dedicated to the protection of the cow, but they work hand in hand with vigilantes. The vigilantes may use the official vehicles, but they will be patrolling the highway with all kinds of weapons, and that will be, of course, a non-official way to enforce the law. First point of this deeper state, first dimension of this deeper state, the osmosis between the official police and the unofficial police. The second one, the second dimension, is the fact that these vigilante groups have been protected by BJP politicians. They've been congratulated by BJP politicians. You may remember Jayant Sinha, Minister of State for Civil Aviation, who was one of the first BJP politicians to take up the defense of 7 Gaurakshak activists who had been indicted by the court in Jharkhand. He had been elected MP in Jharkhand in 2014, before they were released on bail. And there are many other examples. You may also remember Vasundhara Scindia, Chief Minister of Rajasthan, ascribing the lynchings of Muslims to the unemployment, joblessness affecting the Indian youth. This is the problem, she says, that stems out of population explosions, people wanting jobs. People are frustrated that they are not being able to get jobs. There is frustration which is spreading across communities and people. It's not something that is coming out of the state, it's coming out of the people's angry reaction to their circumstances. Very interesting. A spontaneous, violent attitude of the majority is emphasized. The state has nothing to do with it, but it's not going to fight against it either, because finally these vigilantes are somewhat celebrated. Another BJP MLA from Hyderabad precisely said that, well, lynchings will continue as long as the cow is not recognized by law as Rashtramata, mother of the nation. So it's not only that you have an osmosis between the official police and the unofficial police of the vigilantes, it's also that you have politicians giving their blessing and therefore recognizing and protecting to the vigilantes. What is the main objective of this deeper state? What does this deeper state want to do? Well, this is where you need to return to some of the concepts of political science and political sociology. We are very well used to talk about state building. We know what is a state building. State building is the creation of a bureaucracy, the creation of a state apparatus, institutions. As I've said in my introduction, we are obsessed with that. We focus on that. Parties, elections, state machinery. That's not the main objective of the deeper state. The making of a deeper state means that this state bureaucracy, the state police, the officials are only there to make sure that at the grassroots level, at the state level, in every street, in every lane, in every village, there are Hindu militias, Hindu activists, Hindu nationalists who will be in a position to impose the norms they believe in, the social norms, the cultural norms. And I distinguish both on purpose. You have religious norms, and of course, minorities are the first casualties of these norms, as we can see with lynchings regarding cow protection. In the name of cow protection, you impose religious norms, you exert a religious policing, and the Muslims are the first casualties. But there are also social norms. And this is why, for instance, the intercaste marriages are looked after, are watched as vigilantly as things which are more purely religious. And in fact, Bajrang Dal is not only looking at love jihad cases, but also cases of relations between girls and boys of different caste groups. What is at the end of the day the objective? The objective is to maintain norms the upper caste, Hindu upper caste, consider as the real model, pattern. So they want to make the society follow norms which are not constitutional, which are not legal, but which are legitimate according to their worldview. So this is much more deeper. This is much deeper than what the state can do. It's your private life that is under control. And we could go further in this direction and say, even what you eat matters. Well, this is something I would call state formation. It's not state building, it's state formation. This is, by the way, the word Berman and Lonsdale use in a very famous book on Kenya, a book that I really recommend, Unhappy Valley, that is a great, great anthropology of the state, showing how beyond state building, state formation can also make authority prevail. But the authority of an elite that tries to preserve its doxa, its ethos, and its domination, of course, social, cultural domination. This distinction between state building and state formation is something Mohan Bhagavat himself emphasized immediately after Narendra Modi's victory. In his speech during the Vijayadashami rally of 2014, he says, mere political power cannot bring about the desired change in society. So lucid from the point of view of his movement. RSS does not consider that mere political power can bring about the desired change in society. What matters? To create a class, I cite, I quote, to create a class of active and vigilant individuals and organizations engaged in giving direction to the society and solving various problems. This class could help the government through its activism, awareness, and maturity in national interest, and protecting the nation from possible detraction in the game of power politics. Power politics is a game. Don't waste too much time in this game. What matters, as he says, is to give direction to society and to create a network of active and vigilant individuals. Well, this is what state formation is about. And you need state building because you need a police that will protect the vigilantes. But the vigilantes are much more important than the police, than the official police. And the state is only valued if it is there as protecting the vigilantes. This is a very, very important point because it means that Hindu nationalism does not carry the mystique of the state that we find in some European fascist organizations. The state is not an end in itself, it's a mean to protect those who are doing the real job at the grassroots level. And what they do may be illegal, but it is legitimate. It is legitimate because it's done in the name of religion. This is something that takes us back to the definition of vigilantism. Illegal but legitimate. One chief of the Gaurakshadal Dal of Haryana in 2017, Dinesh Arya, was saying, seizing cattle is not legal. And we know that well. We are not authorized to do this. It's the police department's work. But our religion has given us the right to stop our mother from being butchered. We are forcefully taken that right, which means that we are doing something illegal, but that is legitimate. Well, this is why I think we have to go beyond institutions and stop studying only what is legal, what is institutional, because their vision of democracy, their vision of the institutions is completely different from what is enshrined in the Constitution. One of the leaders of West UP, Muzaffarnagar, Sadhana Sangit Som, said, "This is Hindustan, and it does not matter which party is running the government. In a democratic country like this, there are many other ways to get things done. The police knows it very well, that we will do picketing, or demonstration, and all this will lead to rioting. So they perforce cooperate with us." Now let this sink in. It does not matter which party is running the government. No, we are going one step further there. And I will close on this because I think it's the further we can go. It means that in the Indo-nationalist movement today, there are people who say it does not matter if BJP is running the government or if another party is running the government. Because we are the majority, and in a democratic country, quote unquote, the majority rules. This is another definition of majoritarianism, really. And if any party in power resists the will of the majority that we represent, that we articulate, they will have to fall in line. Well, I want to end on this by emphasizing that it means that what is needed is not only to change the government if you want the constitution to be implemented. What is needed is a social change, because till you don't change society, you can't undo what has been achieved by Hindu nationalists. And if you don't undo what has been achieved by Hindu nationalists, they will make sure that any party elected democratically will do what they want. And that is, of course, at the expense of the minorities. So this is the main point I wanted to make. We have to look at social movements more than or as much as political activities. First, to understand what's going on, and secondly, to undo it. I mean, for those who want to undo it, to change the government definitely may not be sufficient. And I will stop here.